Buongiorno a tutti. As I said, it's my first time in Sweden. I'm very happy to start my approach with Sweden from here. I understand that this is a particular place where, it's a very challenging environment for a designer. And especially for a designer as we intend a designer to be, which maybe is not the Philip Stark style. And even if we have to become as good as Philip Stark in designing other kind of objects, artifacts, things, as Professor Pell would say. So just a short introduction about myself and what I'm going to present today. I prepared quite a long speech, but we can skip on that different parts. So according also to your interest, and please feel free to interrupt me. And my intention today is try to discuss with you a framework of design for services that I developed together with a friend and a colleague, and that we are actually testing and using to give some kind of framework to our way of doing, because service design is not such a consolidated approach and discipline. So my first question is for you guys. What do you know about service design? Do you think that you are service designer or you want to be service designers? Do you know someone else that claims to be a service designer or not? Because in Italy, when we speak about design, the first reaction is that people think about Ferrari, Armani, and Cassina, and so on and so forth. So we still have to to fight to say that design is not only that. And so what is the situation here? Are you service designers? Kind of? Not really? Not at all? Maybe a bit? Who feels that is a service designer? Feels like is a service designer? Please, raise your hand. You are a service. Why do you think you're a service designer?
Why?
Yeah.
Because I love the way we can change the everyday life. People.
You think that
There are a lot of things to do out there.
Yeah, I do agree that somehow services are powerful tools. And of course, they are not an invention, but there is a kind of virus that you will see when you start to see things as things or behaviors as services. You find services wherever you go. And you start to think that you have a brand new way of capacity and possibility to work with all these things happening, if you find for them a framework of understanding. And basically, myself, and just a few words about me. As Anna mentioned, I'm from Milan. I guess that you all know Milan, and maybe more for the fashion than for other hills. But, Politecnico is actually one of the oldest university in Milan. So we are, Politecnico is a technical school, basically. We have engineering, architecture, and now also design since 15 years. But it must be maybe worth to say that in Italy, design has a longer tradition than Politecnico, even if Politecnico was the first design school in Italy. Because actually, designers in Italy grew up into the discipline of architecture and engineering. So the famous Italian designers grew up into architecture or engineering, and so the way how they developed the idea of design was already particular. And those coming from architecture, they brought very much of the sense of the society within the design field. So are not just design in the Italian way is very much related to lifestyles and way of living and well-being in a broad sense. And I guess this dimension of design is still very much embedded in our way of doing. So in particular, I am from a group of work which has a long tradition in design for sustainability. I've had the privilege of working with Ezio Manzini for a long, long time. I guess many of you knows about him. And so I've really learned a lot, probably all what I'm able to do. And most of all, I've learned to be myself and to find my way, which is what a good professor, good teacher should really teach you. And well, together with Ezio, also we founded this network that we are now developing it, and who is an international network of people, of designers, but not only designers working with design for social innovation and sustainability, where the approach of service design is quite crucial, because as she said, what's your name? Yeah. Keisha said, services have the power of changing behaviors very much. And so social innovation is really very much with this. Well, as I said, what I'm presenting today is also the result of the work of Daniela. Daniela is a colleague of us, was a former colleague of us, at a certain point decided to go to Lancaster in the UK to work there with Rachel Cooper and the team of Imagination Lancaster. They are very good, but unfortunately they are a bit like in the middle of nowhere, in a beautiful middle of nowhere, but in the middle of nowhere. And but we still work together and we try to do things together. So I must acknowledge also Daniela and a kind of 3 years of work to come out with some of the results that I'm presenting today. And also I have to thank a lot of people that help us to work around this field. So, to jump into the issue, service design is a quite recent discipline. It's not that old. But today, many voices claims that service design is an indispensable part of the culture of any designer. What does it mean? It means to acknowledge that whatever designers are you, product, communication, fashion, interior, whatever, you need to know at least a bit of service to understand how to do things. And to do things, also with a new perspective. And in the past, in the very recent past, service design was not yet called service design, but was referred as service science. And it was actually the combination of a number of disciplines working together to create these interactions. And the managers, and particularly the people from the market, invented this term of service science to describe all what is happening there. We do believe that design is not really a science, but we believe that we have a part in that, which is not minor, potentially. And we do believe that somehow recognize services as products of design is a way to acknowledge that we need to have new tools, a new way of thinking to address new demands. Demands which are related to new problems in a new context, all problems in new conditions. And I guess that here, for instance, in this town, you have this perception very clearly with this cultural mix that you have to deal with. And it's an old problem, but the way to participate as designer in creating the condition for a cultural integration is a brand new situation we have to face. And we can question ourselves, how can we contribute in that? And so we understood that service design is a way to work not only with problem solving, but also with problem finding and problem setting and framing as we said, when you start to understand, to recognize patterns in things, and so service patterns, you see service patterns wherever you go. And you understand that there are many things that you can work with. And this is probably also the knowledge economy, knowledge society. This is what it's about. So our work with services started with trying to asking ourselves, what should a service designer design? Because actually services are kind of spatial artifacts that, as we will see, are co-created by a number of people, of stakeholders. And so what's our role in that? And so what's our role? Once we knew that we have to collaborate with a lot of other disciplines, and services need different competencies. And then we ask ourselves, okay, what is a good service from the perspective of a company or organization and from the perspective of a user? Because the two things are not necessarily one, the two perspectives. And with all these questions in mind, we start to elaborate our own definition of services. That is something like that. A service is a regulated form of co-production of benefits between two or more parties. What does it mean? Services definitely are relations. No, better. Services are interactions, which is clear. But not all interactions are services. Well, I do interact with this computer. Yeah? But my interaction is not a service anyhow. Services can be relations, but not all relations are services. What is the difference between an interaction and a relation? Well, an interaction is this. I can have an interaction with my computer. Luckily, I don't have a relation with my computer. So there is a difference. And also experiences are, services are experiences, but not all experiences are services. So services are part of other interactions, part of a relation, part of experiences, but basically what are they? They are interactions oriented to get a benefit. So they are form of co-production of benefits. Why co-production? Because to have a service, you need to be two, at least. So you need to interact with someone or something that is an interface in order to elaborate this benefit. Otherwise, the service doesn't happen. And of course, services are forms of social interaction. Having said this, we start to collect a number of case studies and to talk with 1,000 people and to see, okay, we don't want really to go too much farther, but just enough in understanding the theory of service design. But what we want to do is definitely understanding how service designers, at least those that believe to be service designer today, operates. So we want to create a framework for the practical experience of service designers. So to try to help practitioners and also researchers with an applied attitude to organize their work and to understand what kind of tool they can use. And so basically, we did and we're still doing a kind of interpretation of ongoing examples and practices. We discovered, and I guess this is another point which is quite interesting, that there is a lot of tacit knowledge in service design, so things which are not yet codified. And also in the conversation we had this morning with Pel and Stefan, we understood that there is a lot of tacit knowledge that somehow both of us are elaborating, and which really would deserve to be conceptualized a little bit more, because as academic and researcher, we have this craziness for understanding and reflecting on what we are doing. And finally, there is a point that makes service unique, and it is that somehow they are highly unpredictable, and not all things can be actually designed. Why? I love this image of these beautiful women because it's perfectly designed. Everything has to follow some rules. But all these things together are not a guarantee that the service she will provide will be actually good. Why? Because she's a person. Services are high in human intensity. It means that when there is a human, there is an issue related with mood, with behavior, which is kindly often predictable. And so as designers, we have also to deal with this, with the fact that someone is probably delivering a service that we can partially design. So we used to say that we design for services more than design services. So this is our framework. Well, just to give you a bit more historical viewpoint that I guess can be useful for you, we can acknowledge a service design having offering us two main opportunities. The first one is exactly what she said, that services today affect behaviors and lifestyle much more than products. So if we want to change somehow the way we behave, we can start from, if we start from services, from offering new access to things and to get benefits, we can start from there with good probability to get successful. And finally, that today our services are becoming the reason for reconceptualizing products. What does it mean? At the beginning, I said that every kind of designer should have a kind of even bit of knowledge of services. Why? Because a lot of products now are designed in the light of the service. I don't know if I'm clear in that, but you can maybe help me to find some case in this. Products that have been redesigned or designed with the purpose of giving a precise service. And because of this, they have a quite unusual shape, unusual organization form. For instance, I like to quote here. Here you have the culture of the bicycle. Yeah, we don't in Italy. But now we are luckily introducing a number of bike sharing solutions, which are quite going well. And I don't know, but I guess you have some knowledge of bike sharing. And if you look at the bikes of the bike sharing, they're completely different from those that you use. Why? Because they have been thought with the aim of being used maximum for half an hour from one station to another. So they are heavy, they are big, they are not light at all. They don't have to be transported as you do with your bikes. But they are quite unique, recognizable, in order not also to be stolen. They have a number of devices for the protection, and you can unlock them with a key and an electronic device and blah, 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 blah. And they can be traced and so on and so forth. They are definitely bicycles, but designed in a brand different way compared to the traditional bicycles because of the service they have to provide. This is a kind of extreme example, but we have a number of objects which are changing because of this. So starting from these two things, we can recognize in the history of service design a couple of fields of study. One is the big words of interaction design, and the other one is the big words of working with functionalities of products and systems. So we have two paradigms, let's say. We'll be very short in this. I guess that if you are interested, you can deepen this. So the first paradigm is the interaction and experience design. What is that? There are 4 keywords that historically has been used to define what a service is. And they are intangibility, heterogeneity, inseparability, and perishability. These are key 4 adjectives that define what a service is and why a service is different from a product. Intangibility. Services cannot be seen, felt, tasted, or touched in the same manner in which goods can be sensed. What does it mean? A bike sharing, is it a service? Yeah. In the end, you have a bike in your hand. So it is tangible, a bike, heavy, there. Why we say that it is a service, and somehow intuitively we understand that the service is intangible. But the bike is tangible. Any idea? Why we say that? Yes.
Because the bike is not the point.
The bike is
Not the point. The point is the service.
the point as a service, because somehow you don't look at the bike itself, but the result is the benefit. And the benefit is the possibility for you to use a bike for a half an hour. So the point of interest is not the bike, because the bike is the means for something, for a benefit to come to you, which is the access of the bike. So the core value of the service is intangible, even if we need tangible stuff to have the service. And if we look at this from a perspective of sustainability, this is quite interesting because we really can go through what we call the materialization. Somehow, accessing a bike is not owning a bike. It means that the same bike can serve me, you, and a lot of people. While if I have mine, it's only mine. And so it's less stuff in the world. I'm not complaining against your bike, guys. I'm complaining against other things, but not your bikes. But in our culture, it's definitely, given that we are not a bike culture as you are, the bike is something that you normally have beside the car. Another point, design and heterogeneity. The quality of the performance may vary from time to time, depending on the situation and the service participants. It's just like to say that the waiter that we have seen before can be in good mood or bad mood, and the service that you get can be maybe the same, because in the end you have your coffee. But the quality that you perceive can be good and bad, depending very much also on the mood of the person. So how can you design the mood of someone? You can. Third point, inseparability. Most services require the presence of customer for the service to exist. This is really stupid because, I mean, it's true, definitely true, because if you enter a restaurant and the restaurant is empty, this is a service which is not happening. So the service takes place only when there are the customers. And so somehow this is a tricky point, because when you design a good project and you deliver the project, the object itself is there with its own qualities or non-qualities. A service is just me and you now. I'm giving a service. I'm really giving a service now. Teaching is a service. And if I'm in a good mood or in a bad mood, it changes very much. Maybe not the contents, because the slideshow would be the same, but your satisfaction with my performance. That's all. Again, how can we work with this? Maybe also considering users are as part of the service somehow. We'll see this. And finally, perishability. This is quite an interesting point. Most services can't be stored. They depend on ability to balance and synchronize demand with supply. The same example of the restaurant. The restaurant can be empty or can be super crowded with people in line and people just saying, okay, it's too crowded, I have to wait half an hour, I go. And of course, it's a loss for the business. And so for every service, to balance the peak up and down is one of the main points that must be designed. And this was the first. The second paradigm that I want to share with you, it's even easier. And I guess it's very much in your culture here, because actually the people from Lund University have been working around this since the 90s. So Oksana Mont and all the people there are really working around this concept of moving. They are engineers, or mainly engineers, but they at a certain point they said, you know what? To solve a problem, we don't have to think in terms of objects, but in terms of functions. So the problem is mobility. The issue is mobility, it's not the car. And when I start thinking about the problem of mobility, the issue of mobility, and not the issue of the car, I can come out with definitely very interesting solutions. Very interesting also from the perspective of sustainability. And so sometimes also having the capacity to move from our way of thinking, which is stick to object, to a new one, which considers functions and so performances somehow, benefits, as the real object of our creativity, well, this can create very beautiful outcomes. Can I move on? Well, again, I want to make a long story short and to start to see with you cases. But technically speaking, it's just like to say that what we have seen so far is referable to two kind of revolutions. One is the one of efficiency, and the other one is the so-called revolution of sufficiency. Efficiency, what is that? I mean, I guess that you all are accustomed with eco-design. Eco-design is a way to design objects which are lighter, which are recyclable, which are reusable, and so on and so forth. And we need that. But as you can see, this is just part of the answer. So it's not enough if we only make a car less, for instance, a car less impacting, less consuming, lighter, and so on and so forth, when our cities are exploding because of too many cars. So it's, yes, definitely, we need to have cars using less resources, but most of all, we need also to act on sufficiency, which means that we have to change the perception of the people about what is sufficient for them to feel good. Maybe the car is not a problem. It's not the way to move around in town. I have a friend in Copenhagen. I was visiting her yesterday, and we've been working together in Milan for many years. And she was the kind of car girl, using the car wherever. And then she got married with a Danish guy, and she moved here. And she said, I came with my Yaris, with my car, and in the first, I used the car like 20 days, and I got 37 multe, ticket fees. Parking, not parking, you know, when you get a fee. When you do something wrong, ticket. And I said, And so she immediately understood that the car was not the solution here. Was definitely the burden. And so she sold out the car. And now she's a cycling woman, but at the beginning was definitely. And so this is the point. Even a very light car, not consuming at all, but was not the solution here. And so she understood that this is the framework here, and the platform of services for mobility that you have here are much better than in Italy, or quite better. So, or at least good enough to get rid of the car. And that was the solution. So we have to enter this field to be able to move our, get out of our boxes, mental boxes. We all have them, don't worry, guys. We all have our prejudices, We all have our mental, cages. We have to find them, but we have them, don't worry. So, having said this, just a short, with this long, maybe too long introduction, I want to try to tell you the story of this kind of framework for action in service design. So we used all these paradigms that you have seen. We analyzed a number of case studies which are in progress. We have a number in a book, but we are working on more. And we came out with a framework. Oh, this is very light. This is better. That is a kind of compass to navigate within what a service design can do. And so it's a compass that help us in understanding the purpose of a service design intervention, of a service design project. And we will see this very shortly and try to understand some cases. I would like to start from the most traditional field of service design, the one that really generated service design, which is, as I said, the word of interaction, relations, and experiences. As I said at the beginning, interaction, relations, and experiences are three things. That's a kind of scale. You can somehow control an interaction. You can, yes or no, control a relation, because you can create the condition for two people to meet and have a nice time together. But then it's up to them. And you can very rarely control an experience, because an experience is a very subjective state. And so every time you speak about experience design, it's a bit now it's kind of old, but most of all, it's a kind of pretending. And so we should be thinking about that. So let's start from, this slice of the cake and all the kind of things that happen that a designer can do when they work in service design as a way to, support and increase the quality of the experience of a user. But not really designing the experience, but try to create the condition for a better situation to live in and to stay in. I guess that we have a lot of, all of us, we have a lot of experiences in this. When I work with my students in Italy, and my classes are international classes, I used to ask, okay, can you tell me something about having a visa here in Italy? And it's just like opening the door. And in a few minutes, I have a number of people, was in line for without knowing how long. And so I said, okay, that was an experience we can work with. So when you are a service designer and you work with that kind of stuff, you are definitely working on trying to make the experience of using a service better. Maybe the service itself doesn't change that much, because in the end you get the visa. But the way how you get it change completely the perception of the quality of what you get. And also the perception of a country, in this case. Because you feel like you are respected as a human or not. And this is another big issue. Services are not just about users. Services are about humans. If to redesign a service is not just a way to help someone to be considered a good user, but it can be really about creating the condition for the human being to be respected. And this is the case of the visa and so on and so forth. So there are 4 key concepts in this area. So one is really human-centered design. Human-centered is not user-centered. It's really about the individual in the whole perspective. The other one is really dealing with the experience of the people. And from the perspective of a practitioner of service design, of course, this means linking field observation with co-creation. What does it mean? That if you want to understand the experience of someone in the line for the visa, you have to go there. So you have to work in field. And you have to ask these people to understand how the service could be improved. And so it's a co-creation, it's a co-design issue. Because you use a lot of their knowledge and the experience of the people to make the service better. And not only of the people in line, but also of the poor guys in the desk that everyone hates. But he's part of the service as well. And he's a poor guy as well. So this is the approach. Just to tell you a very, classic design case, this is the words of, for instance, working with hospitals. Because when you are in the line for a visa, it's definitely stressing and stressful. But when you are in the line to know whether or not you have a cancer, it's another point. It is. And so, to relieve the people from the burden of waiting such a communication and to create the right condition to communicate even terrible news with a good, making people feel that there is something we can work on it. It's not the end of the world, which is something that you feel. And I don't know if you ever had the chance to be in a hospital somehow waiting for whatever. You are in a situation of anxiety, of stress, which is so high. And so a lot of work has been done and is been doing within this. This is a case from UK. I don't tell the details. If you like, you can see that. But there is this company who is Think Public, is a consultancy that work with service design. And they are, as you can see from the name, they are very much specialized into working with public services and so on and so forth. And they are supporting the NHS, National Health System, to develop tools and ways to work with the different hospitals for giving the patients waiting for whatever better experiences and better situations. But this is definitely, they developed their own co-design methodology. These methodologies, you will have the time to look at it if you like. Anyway, in their intention, this methodology helped to move from complaining to co-designing. They call it experience-based design or experience-based co-design, which is even better. And they have developed, this is very much in the mentality of the Anglo-Saxon people, they developed a number of tools and manuals that are now developed and distributed and spread all over the hospitals to help the managers of the hospital and the staff to work with the patients and to change some, even small things in the waiting, for instance, in the waiting situation that can really help the people to feel much better. So they have developed their own way, they create groups and they work by mixing all the groups, and the groups are not only users, so not only patients, not only staff, not only designers, but they are a mix of them working together from observation to co-creation. In the specific case, they emphasize very much the importance of branding and communicating the purpose of the initiative, so make aware everyone that there is a project in place, and so to feel everyone be part of that, so to feel them really involved and to feel the ownership of the project as staff, as people, and so they worked a lot with communication at the beginning. They work a lot with all the ethnographic techniques like shadowing, observing, interviewing, in order to understand what's happened to the people while they are in the hospital. And they finally developed a number of, they call it emotional mapping, which is a way to start to point out a number of interventions, punctual intervention to work around. And the key philosophy of Think Public is really to move the patient from the one to be served to the one that can contribute in the delivery of the service. So they said, if people can identify with the problem, they are more likely to become part of the solution, because they feel like, okay, I'm in line. Of course, this is really uncomfortable, but I understand the position of the other. And there is a key point here, which is empathy. Empathy, so being able to step into the shoes of the others is a key element when you design for services. Because understanding the position of the others, understanding that your feeling of comfort or discomfort is maybe the same of the other people. And so they, at the end, they came out with a small 33 law or no cost improvements, so very short in terms, but very effective. Let's keep this. Okay. I guess that in your experience here, you might have been doing something like that. Maybe not with the hospital, but I guess that it happened to you or will happen to work with the expectation of the people during something. Next, designing interaction to shape system and organization. What is happening here? We are moving now, here. Basically, this way of working of service design occurs when, by changing the way how a company or organization interact with the users, with the clients, they basically have to change the way they operate. So at the beginning, they think that it's just about changing the interface. In the end, they discover that they have to change the organization to do these new things. And it happens quite frequently. In this way, changing the design of the interface, of the interaction, can definitely be a way to innovate the whole company, and so to enter into the organization of the company. And so for doing this, you have to work as designer. You have to work a lot with people from organizational theory, managers, management of innovation, and so on and so forth. You really need their help to support you and your project within the company or the organization. Let's see, again, we have a number of key points here. User service interaction, so that is the starting point, but then it's crucial the participation of the service staff here, because your result is not only the new service or the new interface, but it's the new behavior mainly of the staff. And the staff, in order to be part of the project and to feel like they want to change, they have to be involved. They don't have just to be top-down, forced to do something. So again, if your project somehow can change and need to change the way how a company or organization work, you have to involve the organization since the beginning and the staff since the beginning. Again, a short example, this is from Italy, again in the public sector. This is the regional government. I don't know how it works here, probably different, but for people, for unemployed people, this is a case developed by an Italian agency, research agency. What happened? So, this project of the regional government was about how to deal with job agency, public job agencies managed by the region. When you are unemployed in Italy, you have to subscribe to a job agency, and this job agency should help you in finding new job opportunities. Well, it was to be. At a certain point, the region decided to change the system because, of course, these job agencies were not really working that well. And instead of giving the money to the job agencies, the region decided to make an experiment and to give the money to the unemployed people so that they have this dote, which is this amount. The title of this project is Dote Lavoro. It's a kind of, you have some pocket money, let's say, that you can decide to give to one agency or to another one, depending on which one works better for you. This was a big revolution because the job agency, instead of receiving the money from the region, were supposed to compete each other to give a real service, to provide a real service. And this effectiveness of the service was somehow recognized by the users who has the power to give his money, her money, to a certain agency instead of another one. At the beginning, this consultancy was asked to help the prototyping, the first prototyping of this service through communication, so to help them in developing proper tool of communication. Well, they understood from the beginning that was not a matter of communication, was really a matter of make understand all the stuff that their role would have been changed, how, why, and what was the future for them. And so it was a very hot stuff, let's say. Of course, they did the work as communication, but most of all, they tried to work on the service, tried to make the service clearer for the different stakeholders, the users, the job agencies, the public administration. And it was a fight because, as you can figure out, it created quite an uncomfortable situation for the job agency that were asked to do something for real. And so it was not a neutral communication campaign. It was something that was touching very deep the systems. And so they skipped this because it's a long journey. But their main work was really in trying to develop a number of tools that exemplified in the mind of the people the new roles, and at the same time ask for their support in defining these new roles. So they asked the staff to contribute in developing this new way. It's still in place, the project is still, they are still prototyping. The good is that doesn't matter, let's keep this one. And so they understand that the work was very much about the cultural change of the people working with the services, about organizational change of the company, in that case was the region, the regional government, and in providing at the end, let's say, some interaction guidelines, but once the project was already well known and shared among the people. Last two areas of our cake are those much crowded of projects. I will tell you a number of projects in these areas because these are actually the two areas we are working in a lot as group in Milan. And the next one is when service design help to explore new collaborative service models. And so we are here, let's say, where and this is really a very up-to-date, a contemporary issue, because collaborative service models are all over and are a way of doing today, which is largely due to the possibilities offered by technologies and ICT technologies. I guess this is obvious. We can do a lot of things together with other people. We have other people like us or different, but thanks to the fact that we have a lot of interaction tools, communication tools that are right at the right place in the right moment. And of course, this implies a quite a different way of thinking about things happening and about involving the different stakeholders, being them users, providers, or a mix. And it means that as designers, you don't work for a company, but you work for a community, and within a community. And it is really an experimental activity. So it means that many of these services are still at the phase of pilots, because the possibility offered by technology are quite recent, even if they have already a kind of story, but they are so fast developing. And again, let's say 4 key concepts. Here the emphasis is really on co-creation, because when you do something in a collaborative fashion, you have to allow other people to to be part of the design, not only of the delivery. And so how to be able to engage people who have no design background, for instance, or managerial background, but maybe ordinary people, and to make them able to do things is an issue. I guess we have been talking about this. I know that you are working with Fabriken. Maybe all of you know this. What you are trying to do there is make things happening in a kind of collaborative way, but how far you can control, you can do things, you can. And so there is very much with building capacities from within. So design here is not just applying capacities, but helping the others to become designers, or somehow to use and some professional, let me say, tools to use them in their everyday life. And of course, it's very much about using new media and understanding the digital divide that these new media can imply. I will start with a case study, which is again from UK. It's in between public and private. It has been developed by a company, a consultancy, which is called Participle. And this is nice because the idea was how to, they call it big society. Basically, it's about, okay, good, help yourself. Help yourself means creating in different level of the public welfare the condition for the people to be part of the solution and not of the problem. In this way, in this case, the project was about the elderly people. And in a suburb of London, and the department of the regional government and the media company over there decided to develop new solutions for aging population and to help population to help themselves as much as possible. But, well, to make a long story short, they invented this idea of circles. Circles are basically ways to give answer to all these kind of questions. So what could be designed that would enable older people to proactively consume a fulfilling third age? What would inspire demand, stimulate supply, and change the system? And so on and so forth. So basically, how can we help them, these people, to remain independent as long as possible, having a fulfilling life, to help each other somehow in some way? Well, the concept of circle is a kind of simple but very effective answer, because it's a membership organization which creates a platform for meeting the offering and the demand of very basic everyday things and services. I do need to change the bulb, but I am 87. I'm perfectly good, but I really don't feel like I can jump on a stairs and change my bulb. And this affects, of course, my everyday well-being. But maybe there is my neighborhood, which is 72, and he's perfectly well and could do it for me. So Circle is a way to use technologies to create all these links, to make effective all these links which are naturally in place, and to create a system of exchange between those who are able to give something and those who are in need. And this circle, by solving very basic things, can really help a lot the life of the people. there. Um, Another example, and this is from our experience. You might know that, look at this picture, by the way. Now remember this picture. You might know that I'm in the country of co-housing, and all this tradition is very old in your history, and so on and so forth. In Italy, it's not like that. But what we are facing now is that we are having a second generation of demand for co-housing and kind of collaborative housing services and solutions, which is due to the changes of demographic conditions. So families are not any longer those that were in the past. Many of us live alone. Kids are kids sharing more than one family and more than one pair of parents. And so it's, this brings about a new way of living, which is not any longer motivated by a precise ideology, but motivated by the aim of, doing something which is more effective, more beneficial, more for everyday life. And so in Italy, we are now having this kind of hidden, not that much hidden any longer, demand for co-housing solution, which is emerging. And some years ago, it was, I guess, 2006, we started to work with a brand new startup. It was a private company aiming at introducing co-housing back. And so their business model was a kind of wrong model. So at the beginning, they didn't go that well. But the idea was very good and is still very good. And so we helped them in doing three main things, let's say: finding people, finding areas, and designing the process. Co-housing is not just a matter of building something and selling or renting the apartments. Co-housing, as you know very well, it's about creating the community and deciding together what you want to share. What is the co-housing based on? And so, it's not just a traditional process, it's something much more complex. To make a long story short, again, we developed, together with this company, a tool that we are still using, which are a number of issue cards, activity cards, which present a number of options that you can work with and decide to have in your co-housing, from food to clothing to kids, management of the kids, of the elderly, of whatever. So there are a number of things that you can decide to do together. You can decide to have a micro nursery or a swimming pool or a purchasing group or a communal kitchen or whatever. Who starts? And so we developed these cards, which are kind of provocation for possible ideas to share. And we start to work with the community that was willing to share the house to see whether or not their idea of communal living was matching the imaginary of all the people there. And by using these cards, of course they are in Italian because our target was Italian. And all the groups started to select those cards that most that were proposing ideas that somehow resonating for them, and to work around these ideas. So from the beginning, that was just the appetizer, let's say, they start to develop the full meal. And by using these cards and selecting and discussing the different choices, they were able in the end to come out with ideas that can be finally shared with the architect and with the developer, and so to ask for something which was clear also for the architect. And to come out with a business model, so to understand the costs of this. And most of all, to come out with some rules that the community would have shared in order to manage this or that. Because in the end, the co-housing is a service, is a situation where the community manage as much as possible a number of services by themselves. So these services were transformed into, well, this is a bit more complicated, but the nice point that at a certain point we came out with a number of, for this community, with a number of hypotheses, and we make kind of prototypes. This is crucial. Every time you do a service, it's quite crucial to prototype the idea. And the first prototype was done by the people by enacting the different situation they were supposed to have in their house. And this enacting, we did it with the help of some professional actor. And it was very useful because you really literally jump into the shoes of you in the near future doing something, and you really start to understand which are the problems, the potential conflicts, the potential criticalities, and it was very useful. You're not supposed to read this, is also something we are working on that, but we are kind of developing a methodology for working with this kind of community, so to try to have also a toolkit that can be used in different situations. Cards are just one of these situations. Basically, we have 3 main stages when we work with communities of co-housing. One is definitely the creation of the community. The other one is designing together the services we want to have, and the third one is really manage the community. And this is the place as it is now. I guess I don't like that much of the architecture, but I like it very much. And it's beautiful. But when you enter there, you really feel like, wow, it's an harmonic place. And they use the part of the old buildings they build up the old, but not. And the garden is the garden. That was when they enter. Now the garden is really a garden, and it's a kind of success story. We are very happy for that. And finally, and this is really one of the areas where we have a lot of to present, if we like, is when we use services somehow to figure out future scenarios and try to see how we can prototype into the present time something that is a bit of the future. Because the way it changes the lifestyle and behavior, it could be so radical in a general framework that is really a way to bring about a future that we would like to have. And so we are really working here, where services are tools to prototype the future, exactly as she said at the beginning, to try to see whether a new behavior can work now, as we want this new behavior become a kind of mainstream in the near future. Whatever behavior is that, based on collaboration, on the use of technology, And of course, in this part of the work, we used to collaborate a lot with people from different disciplines, with a lot of psychologists and sociologists, but not only, with also people able to help us in the road mapping from the present to the future. And so, this kind of work has to do very much with projects which aims to transform a region or a kind of territorial land. So in many cases, the scope is really wide. And it involves this kind of projects involves different levels and kind of stakeholders, from the ordinary citizen to the government. And in between all that is the business, the civic society organizations, and so on and so forth. And so these projects are basically kind of ways of prototyping also policies for the future. And they imply that somehow the policy, look at the result and move and change accordingly. We call this way of doing community-centered design because it's not only because we work not only with the user, so it's not user-centered design, but we work with bigger communities, but also because the kind of involvement that this project require is much bigger than just designing something and prototyping, but is really being there with the community and work within the community for a while. And so being there, become somehow kind of activists with the community and within the community in order to motivate the people to do new things and to enable to do new things and to stay there just enough to make this community able to do things by themselves, by itself. Again, we have a number of key points. Scenarios. In all this system, we have a lot of scenario building. I guess that for some of you, it's a tool, it's an experience you have. When you work with scenarios, you don't work only with visions, but you work with visions who has a framework in time and space. Well, let's say like this now. Let's see a couple of projects and then a couple of experiences that we're doing in Milan. This is a very nice project. It's a project done by a colleague and friends of us, who is François Jegou. He has a consultancy in Belgium. And this is a project he did for the Cité du Design at Saint-Étienne. Saint-Étienne is a small town in the roads near the Alps. It's a nice, very nice place, but as many towns, was suffering from, I guess as here, from a kind of post-industrial revolution situation. So all the productive infrastructure was over. And so they were facing how to change from one situation to another. It was an industrial city, and after, in 10 years ago, 20 years ago, was completely out. And so there is there, a design school, which was quite small but interesting. And the public administration decided to start from this small school that was a kind of miracle in the middle of a post-industrial town to create a brand new identity for the town and to use a big area, a former industrial area, to create a Cité du Design, a city of design, which was not just about that school, but was actually about research, about a design studio, about exhibition, and so on and so forth. And they take the opportunity of a big design exhibition to make this process start. But what was the problem? The problem was that the aim of the public administration, that was a big scenario, but this scenario was not something that could have been designed top-down. And so they said, okay, we must find a way to involve the people of the town, because the town was small while the area was huge. And so the impact of this new development would have been really strong and huge to the community. And so François Jegou was in charge to start this social conversation about the future of that big area. And actually what he did was start to collect stories about the future. So start to collect stories about the future life system there. So asking different people with different tools, also a blog, to tell their story about the aspirational life in that city, in that future city. So it was about telling story about the future. How would I have figured out to have my life there, or in Saint-Étienne, but with relation to this new place? And so he started to collect these stories Again, they followed the methodology, but from our perspective now, it's nice to see how he did it. Oh, because he started to work online and offline with a session with different people and involving different stakeholders, using a lot of design tools, meaning visualizing things, providing visualization that people can discuss, asking people to design and to literally draw things, and so to design a solution for the future, bringing examples, bringing their own imagination. He created a blog. This blog was open to everyone that wanted to contribute. And even more, he started to, once a number of ideas went clearer, he started to make these small movies about future lifestyles there, and to use these movies to interact with the people, with even other people. And it was a great success, and he took the opportunity of the design exhibition in, it was 2010, I guess, that was held there, to conclude this phase of collective discussion. And the material that he produced for the exhibition was at the same time the content of the exhibition and the moment of exchange with the people. So it was the exhibition was also about the future of the place itself, of the exhibition itself, and it was quite a huge process of involvement, quite successful, frankly speaking. They used a number of they played these movies on the number of situations, asking for comments, and well, in the end, they came out with a kind of a shared briefing for this new place. And the new place is almost done now. So if you like to go to Saint-Étienne, I guess it will be also beautiful, because the Biennale of Saint-Étienne now is an established exhibition event. And you can feel that this big portion of town is quite integrated now in the old village. And I mean, it's not just, I mean, it was not, it's not just an happy ending. It was, Francois told me, a very hard path, a very hard journey. But quite successful now, and at least with the participation of the people. As final project that I like to tell you now, it's a project which is based in Milan, and that we are working with since, well, practically speaking, since 2007. It happened to us that we have in 2007, we have the chance, we had a very small funds from the Ministry of Culture to work around this area. This area is a huge agricultural park, which is bordering the south of Milan. Milan is that village there with the dome in the center. But just to give you an idea, from the dome to the, let's say here, it's average 25, 30 kilometers. So Milan is quite a small town. This is not a park in the natural sense. So we don't have fences and the beautiful, I don't know, animal inside. But it's an agricultural area somehow protected by urbanization. So it's an area which is devoted to production of food. But what's happened? Well, it's happened that this area, the food produced there, is mainly produced for the big chains of distribution. And so it means that we produce a lot of rice, we produce a lot of corn, we produce a lot of milk in huge cultivations, quite unsustainable from the perspective of the way of producing. And most of all, what is produced is sold to the big distribution and big retailers or big food processor. They take a long journey to be back in town, to be eaten somehow. And the revenue for the farmers is getting smaller and smaller. So for them, it's a matter of surviving. So we got these very small fundings from the ministry. I'm talking about 5,000 euros, so almost nothing, to work in a theoretical project within other people, other universities, to develop a sort of scenario for this area in order to create a short connection between this production area and the town. I just want to show you that this is not just fields. I mean, somehow this huge park is the cradle of Milan, of the culture of Milan, because Milan is a city in the middle of this big field that was bonificata, how you say, was drained in the Middle Age by the religious order, was drained, and a lot of channels were created that actually water the agriculture and bring the water to the town. So this environmental engineering big work started in 100, 2000 or something like that. And so this big park is actually populated by beautiful abbeys, beautiful buildings from the past, from the stories, beautiful farmhouses, many of them now almost like this, but from the 17th century, 16th century, so a lot of channels, and a lot of agriculture of every kind, a lot of people, a lot of communities, foreign communities are living there. Of course, we also have animals. We have a number of villages, but we also have big streets and, you know, all the stuff you can see around the town. But beside this, we also have initiatives we have big companies, big farmers, and also smaller farmers, which are trying another way, which are already trying to produce organic or as better as possible there, which are already trying to differentiate the production in order to be more convenient for them, to gain more money out of this, to earn more money, because they can sell directly to the people. And so we have a lot of initiatives which are trying to do things. Well, we started to do this process. It was 2005, and from 2005 to 2007, we developed a kind of theoretical scenario for this area. And this scenario was made, sorry, you can see very few. Was the idea behind this scenario was to create a number of services connecting the production in the countryside with the town, and to create connections, to have a scenario which was playing in between food, leisure, town, and countryside, because as you can see, that land is a beautiful land to spend some time. It's not only for food production. We created a number of service models, so ideas of possible services, creating this link. And we had the, idea, intention of developing these services as a network. So creating synergies among the different services to help each other. So this was with this in our mind and facing a number of things happening, one of those was that in 2008 we were granted of the Milan was granted of the 2015 Expo, International Expo. You might know that in 2015 we should host the International Expo. We start to work with slow food in order to prepare a kind of counter proposal for the Expo, because we are in Italy, and unfortunately we know that all these kind of opportunities can rapidly turn into risk. So from an Expo, that the title is Feeding the Planet, Energy for Work, so it's about really sustainable food. The risk was to have an opportunity for building up more, building small stuff and so on and so forth. And so we said with the people of Slow Food, okay guys, let's try to make a counter proposal and let's go around looking for fundings in order to make this counter proposal happening. We developed a beautiful scenario, and all this scenario was based on a very simple what if. What if the citizen and the farmers get in touch and they create a brand new system to feed the city? We decided we created a brand, and at that point, we were able to find financing from a bank foundation, a big bank foundation. And we decided to call this Nutrire Milano, which is Feed in Milan, and we call it a city-supported agriculture. So it's not just a community-supported agriculture, but an entire city that could have created a condition to support the agriculture all around. Given that we are designer, after all, we said, okay, first of all, we have to grow consensus around this idea and this scenario, because it was clear since the beginning that our work would have been to involve a lot of different stakeholders. I do have a movie. Is there the audio? And so we created a number of but it doesn't work.
Vorrei pane buono ad un prezzo giusto.
Vorrei mangiare
Vorrei
bene.
conoscere i produttori.
Doesn't matter
locali.
if you don't understand.
non fosse una gioielleria.
I guess you can see the images. The idea was to make clear for one side the
Vorrei farmi
population
conoscere di
Vorrei
più.
un mercato per i miei
Vorrei
prodotti.
essere un lato.
and the other side the farmers
Potrei fare le
Vorrei
conserve.
sfruttare di più il mio
the
furgone.
purpose.
Vorrei andare a fare delle
this
passeggiate in
project.
campagna.
Vorrei far venire i bambini in fattoria.
That was really about matching a kind of unintended demand with an intended offering, or something that was already in place but not yet really available. And so I started to create a number of communication tools and communication devices, video scenarios as this one, to tell the story that we would have been able to build. And we decided for our project, we would have chosen an added value. And this value would have been the one of conviviality. So we said, okay, somehow we aim to challenge the industrial system and the industrial food system. What can we offer? Because of course, the convenience of a supermarket is something that cannot be replaced by anything else. You just go there, you pick up what you need, and it's it. If you have to pay something a bit more than in a supermarket, because basically supermarket exploits all the suppliers. If you want to have something which is local, which is seasonal, which is ecologic, and you know that for this you have to pay a little bit more, what forces you, what takes you to do that? What takes you in doing more, taking more efforts, not only economically, but also putting your personal engagement? What's for that? And we said, okay, we have a key in this. We call it conviviality, meaning the creation of a situation where you can share something around food with other people. And we decided to start our project by putting in place one of these smaller services that create a big scenario. And this service was the farmer's market. So Slow Food went around making the selection of the first producers available to take part in this farmer's market. And we developed a particular idea of farmer's market for Milan. Also for the farmer's market itself, we created a video scenario to tell what we had in our mind and what we wanted to do. And so to explain this story to the farmers that have to be convinced to come, and to the neighborhood and the public administration that had to be convinced to host us and to have us into their neighborhood. And so also for this, we developed this kind of visual things to tell the story of what we were about to do. And luckily, we had the chance to move soon from theory to practice and to put in place this farmers market as a first pilot experiment of this bigger situation. Well, and if you look at this market, beside the produce and the people, you discover that now you see that it's not a traditional market, but it's a place where, at a certain point, we decided to design the relations and the experience of the people. How? Just giving the people some space to sit down and eat together. And we created, and now you will see, the convivial tables that at the beginning of the morning are empty and at the end are full of people with this kind of attitude. And so our market has been for 2 years, because now we are looking for a new situation, has been the place where people just wanted to come to spend the Saturday morning. And maybe buying a few stuff, but sitting down with the friends, eating there, even waiting in line for half an hour to buy the bread or whatever. But we hosted also, I mean, the market is not just a market. We host musicians, we host everyone who wants to do something. We have tasting sessions, because Slow Food organized this master of food there. So we invite people to tell the story of the food, to teach us how to consume it. And so it's not just a traditional market, but it's a kind of multifunctional market with a lot of things combined together. And one of these things, and here I guess this is the point, we decided to use this market as a prototyping edge of our system, and to open up in that market a sharing idea stall, meaning that among all the other stalls selling fruits, vegetable, honey, we are there with a stall where it's a kind of living lab, let me say. It's a place where we interact with the people visiting the market to discuss about new ideas. And we use a number of design tools. This, for instance, was the prototyping phase of the Farmer's Box, which is a service that is now, after the second really prototyping phase, into the final step of becoming a service. And we use this stall as a place to start discussing about new potential things. So new potential services related with this big scenario. And we use this tool to keep people informed about what we are doing. We use this to stimulate the conversation around the neighborhood. And it's a way for us of being there. And definitely that's why we call it community-centered design. And why we believe that there is very much of design activism in that. And this is our way of working. So we move fast from ideation to prototyping as fast as possible. Maybe something which is not perfect is anyway prototyped, because it gives the touch of reality. We use this idea sharing stall as a kind of interface between ideas and implementation. And we are now working on a number of other projects. This is, a digital platform, the Farmer's Box, which implies a changing in the way how things are produced in the farms. I won't tell you now too much in detail how it works, but anyway, this Farmer's Box is a weekly delivery of food, which comes directly from the producers. We have created a number of hubs in the countryside, and these hubs gather produce from different producers. They create these boxes, which are delivered not really to house, but to kind of collection point downtown. And so just to pass through some of the key moments of the prototyping of this service, you can see this was the very first prototyping. So a lot of work done by us. For 1 month, we delivered to 50 users around Milan. And we were there also with the farmers to come to make up this these boxes, because they were absolutely not capable to do it. They were able in producing, but not in selling. And so it's really a capacity building activity that we did it. And we monitored all the people coming to pick up the points and how they bring it at home. It was a huge work. We did it twice. And now we are ready for the final delivery of the service. Well, just to conclude, being there, if I have to say something, to do these kind of things and to make these kind of things happening, you really need to be there. You really need to be part of the community, taking a position, which is also a political position, if I can say. And you have to fight against the circumstances. Somehow you have to fight with and beside the citizens, for instance, against the public administration that somehow is in favor, somehow is not. And again, you have to convince somehow the public administration to change the ways of doing things. In this project, we are now facing the 3rd year. We are launching a number of new ideas, new services. There is a new bread chain that we are producing and launching. We are launching a service of a kind of supermarket run by the people. We are proposing a number of leisure and tourist-oriented opportunity, and that's it. I like to conclude every time with this phrase of Ivan Illich, which is the capacity to promote autonomy is a fundamental characteristic of a convivial tool. And actually, we do believe that these keywords of conviviality is a way to gain the trust and to really get in touch with the other around something that makes sense, at least for us, which is food, and which is a very good argument for conversation, and it's a very good means for really conviviality. And so that's it. I was long, sorry. As I announced, I spoke too long. You didn't interrupt me, but I'm happy for any question, please.
How do you deal with laws and regulations, especially when it's about food? There's lots of different regulations you have to follow before you can deal with the food in the open area.
Well,
you have a lawyer in your staff.
no, but we have experts, not lawyer, but everyone. I mean, people of slow food are expert in that, and we definitely contact a number of people expert in the different fields. For instance, with the food box, with the market, because when you are in an open space, you can or not cook, because we also have food produced there. Let's say that we are running at the edge. But this is unfortunately a condition that you have to face every time you try to do something like this, because it's a big issue. I don't know how far you know about what they are doing in the UK, and there is an agency which is really working with a lot of projects of social innovation, and they pointed out exactly this, that we need to have a kind of protected environment to experiment new things for a while. And there is a colleague of us, of me in Politecnico, that has just discussed a PhD thesis about this, how to create kind of temporary protected environment to experiment with these new things. And actually, for a market, at least for a while, we had it. And but we know that many things are technically are a bit like running out of the regular ways of doing. And so somehow that's why we have also to discuss with the public administration, because we have to make them understand that you are experimenting something. You need to have a certain degree of freedom to do it within the constraints of the law. But the key point is that in the end of the experimentation, if it was successful, as it was, for instance, for the market, not only we have to learn a lesson, but also the public administration should learn a lesson, which in our case didn't really learn that much. And so now we are, we are managing the system anyway. But the point is that at a certain point, after this protected situation, or things change, also from a political perspective, and some new policies really take over the old one, or you can't really go on. But this is not for, I mean, all these projects, as you know, are in between the market and the profit and no profit, the market and the private and the public, the amateurial and professional. It's a mix. And yeah, they don't have an answer more than this. What we are trying to, we are running on the edge, let's say. Finding a way, please.
Yes, how do you get past and around resistance you meet, like before and during and after that project? Because I guess you need a lot of resistance.
Resistance and, but also, yeah. Let's say that policy is something that, I mean, politicians are, they have their own agenda that you can't really understand. But for instance, in this case, I just tell you the story, I just want to tell you the story of the market. The beginning, when we started to do this market, we were granted of a public land, a public space in the middle of a park. And that park was safe, but not that beautiful, not really alive. And through this market, it became wonderful. And so the people of the neighborhood felt like engaged and happy and waiting for the market. And it was very successful. The very first 6 months, we didn't pay any money to the public administration because it was a form of financing that we got. And then we start to pay the occupation of the soil, of the land, I don't know how you call it. And okay, we did it, and we created our own business plan because, of course, we have expenses to make this market, and also the occupation of the soil and so on and so forth. And so participants, all the different farmers start to participate. And at that point, they were happy, and so they were happy to pay as well. So the consensus around the market grew to a point to make them happy to pay something to be there. But then we changed the administration, and the new administration completely changed the rule of the occupancy of the public land. And they made 4 times higher the cost of using the public land. And immediately we were cut out of the market because we couldn't pay so much. It was really out of the economy of the market itself, even if it was very successful. I'm speaking about a total cost of 4,000, 5,000 euro per edition, which is a lot. The total cost of the market, if you have to split this cost among 50 participants, it's a lot. And then they told us that we cannot stay there any longer because it was not that part of the park was not supposed to be used for markets and blah, 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 blah. At that point, the people of the neighborhood were so disappointed of the decision of the public administration to quit the market or to kick out us from there, that they wrote a petition collecting in a couple of days something like 2,000 signs, and writing a number of letters to the main newspapers, magazine, and so on and so forth. And so now there is an entire neighborhood which is really, really angry with the administration that I don't know whether for the public administration it was a success or a failure, because now they have to face an entire neighborhood in rebellion. So we had the consensus of the bottom up, and we guess that this can push the government to change. Yes, please.
I have a question that we were discussing in our group. We were working on the same project, and we were thinking about sustainability of both projects. In your book, you are taking lots of examples of where the projects are 50% sustainable and 50% are using fossil fuels and driving around cars
Yeah.
all day. Is it possible to focus on sustainability in all parts of the project?
Oh, yes.
All of them or not?
No, it is. I mean, it must be. I guess that in our intention, for instance, for this project, Feed in Milan, the aim is that the money we received and we are receiving is to kick off something which has to become as soon as possible self-sustainable. For instance, the market was already. And so now we are looking for another, but it's not if we have to pay 5,000 euro per edition. But this decision is really creating problem, not also with us, but with all those selling stuff in the street, because they have to pay the same amount. Anyway, yes, definitely, sustainability is a key point. Every time we start something, we make a business plan, and in this business plan, the idea is, I spoke about a kind of protected environment. It's the same from the economic perspective. You can figure out that for 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, you are in a kind of protected environment, and then it has to go. And so you create your business plan accordingly. Just that you have, in your business plan, you know that you have to calculate the mortgage. And so you have, just like that, you have this money for the first 6 months, and then you have to do without. But it can be done. I'm not talking about something which is really out of the market. Everything has been planned with the aim of being definitely sustainable. Thank you. Please.
I have a question related to a project to make a plantation park here in Annum.
To make a, sorry?
A plant park, plantation park, where people live here can make their own crops
Yeah.
and so on. And if it is so that they decide to make a business out of this, to not just keep the crops for themselves,
Yeah.
to sell them to small shops nearby. Is it profitable for a small community like here in West Harbor to do this? How large must the site of the park be to satisfy possible needs?
Well, I don't know, because that's also, I'm not an expert in that, and beside this, it's not, thank you, it's not, that is very much related to the latitude. So the productivity of a field is very much related to the latitude. We have some figure as for regard Milan. And so how much you need to self-sustain, for instance, your family, like, let's say 3 people, and how much is more, and so you can sell it. I don't know here, but I guess that a lot depends also on the way how you manage the field. Meaning that what I can tell you is that in my experience and also in the experience of other people, we are moving toward collective gardens rather than individual plots. So in order to be effective, the production, it's better to agree on a certain kind of produce and cultivate it in a big field altogether, not to split the plots into small ones, which are less productive and more critical. So I don't have that much to say that except this. So in our experience, because we are also trying to create a vegetable garden in the campus at Politecnico, and we are exploring this vegetable garden as a link between us and the people living in the neighborhood, because we understood that the campus is perceived as a kind of inaccessible place while you can just enter and see. And so we decided to use a piece of the land to cultivate not an orchard, a kitchen garden, and to see whether this can be used also by neighborhoods. And so we are definitely moving towards an idea of a big field, which is cultivated according to some rules, but which are collective rules, not small things. That is much productive. Then, if you like to do this, I can anticipate you that you are going to face problem with the law, because you are a private citizen. I mean, you can't really open up a business. I mean, if you want to sell something, you have to create a company, an enterprise. And so again, you will be running the edge. And you will have to find a way to make it legal, but it must be a creative way. For instance, we found a way, for the market and people cooking there, in order for them to be paid, we invented a kind of donation. That's it. And this donation was, so it can be something like that. You can not really sell, but give and ask for donations. At least at the beginning, when you see that, and if the business is a business, you can then decide to turn into a company, maybe a social enterprise. But maybe you can have this kind of pilot experiment where you find a kind of negotiated solution, negotiated with the public administration in order not to get feed for the, because you are illegal. Please.
The farmers market example, you got a place in the park at the start to use, and then the community built around that park.
Yeah.
The people around. Do you always feel that there is a community for that? If you think sustainability and try to make good products, good services for people that are environment and stuff, do you feel that there is usually community around that are interested in these products, in these services?
No, you don't have to take it for granted. But our philosophy is that if you can give someone which is appealing, where you go and you feel good, and this is actually what happened with the market. At the beginning, people just came with a kind of prejudice that it was a kind of radical chic situation. In the end, people were happy, but really happy to be there. And so it was a natural mobilization when we faced the problem of being kicked off. And so, I mean, there are latent, as the marketing has taught us that there are latent needs. This was a kind of latent attitude of people, demand of people. And so if you can match, if you can propose something that stimulate the interest of people, all these latent attitude, all the desires also immediately will pop up. And so you have the consensus also. I guess it was like this, and we are definitely trying to do the same. Because now we have this beautiful neighborhood, really angry with the public administration, but happy with us. And so we said, okay, why don't leave this opportunity unexploited, let's say. And so we will start the next week working with them around the concept of a local distribution system. So the one that I said at the very beginning of my talk, okay, maybe not the market, we cannot organize the market any longer here, but we can try to organize other solutions with the help of the people. And so we have already fixed a moment of discussion about other possibilities, and they are now just happy and ready to do whatever. I mean, they are activated now. And they are willing of doing things, even too much, because I mean, the problem with this kind of a situation is that sometimes you create too much expectation in the people. Also, all the co-designing issue is beautiful, but then it takes time to move from the idea into the implementation. And all this co-designing was good, but at the same time created a number of expectation in the people to run fast something, and that was not always possible. So there is also this issue to consider. Yeah.
How many people can be involved in this kind of designs? What's the limit?
I don't know, because in that case, our stall was, we are just there, and we wait for people to pass and to come through. I mean, we just take a few minutes of discussion with everyone who is willing to do something and to participate. And in the end, the people were, they came to the market with the purpose also of doing that, not only of buying the fruits, but also of seeing what's going on in the stall of the sharing idea. Well, and so we were people asking, so what's going on this week? So I don't know the number, but I can tell you that every week we had up to 50, 100, 150, if questionnaires, filled in questionnaires, or just answer to questions or proposal, from 50 to, in average, 50 to 100 interactions.
So that's a small project. It wouldn't work for half of the city, for example.
From?
It wouldn't work for half of Milan, for example.
Why?
The same thing. How should you you need a bigger space to allow so many people.
But they are not, it's not all together now, we do that. It's just that you are there as you are selling apples, but people come and you say, okay, what about if we run a supermarket together, and, it's not, it's a one-to-one interaction in the end. But it's not a quantitative work. Every co-design, it's a qualitative work. It is. Because in the end, you don't need to have a certain... the problem is not to have a statistical answer, but to have proposals, to enlarge the scope of your idea, to enlarge your vision, to have other perspectives. So maybe if you can have 10 very good interactions that help you very much. If you are looking for quantitative data, maybe that is not the right way. Better you go for other ways. I guess I have to say goodbye because...
There's Annum needs to flight
Yeah.
from Milan here, but if there's a final question perhaps?
What's the most effective way to create networks and contacts to get inhabitants of the West Public here to going their own paths. What can we do to reach out to those, to get them involved?
Again, I guess that motivations are not necessarily ideological, not necessarily ethics. I guess that if you start from that side, you have few possibility of succeed. My suggestion is, let me say something stupid, is to start from pleasure of doing something with the other people. And actually, this is the philosophy behind Slow Food. They have the claim of a good, fair, and clean. Sorry, because I was in Italian. I was thinking in Italian. Good, fair, and clean. You start from something which is good, so that first enjoy your senses. And at the same time, it must be fair and clean. And I guess this is a kind of Italian way of doing. This is, in my vision, deeply the soul and DNA of the Italian design. Not just be functional, not just be clean, so ethical or ecological, but also being good or good enough. And so we decided to start from that, from conviviality. And then through conviviality, people can really get all the other points and slowly agree also more theoretical, critical, philosophical, or whatever arguments. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.